TransactionalInvestor.com's Daily Brief. The answer to your question is learn the goddamn process, trade your trading plans, don't take too much risk on any one trade, and just let yourself get rich. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Frivolity. It is Monday here today, TGIM. It's a bit of a funny holiday session here. Not quite sure why this dashboard histogram always loads like that blank, but anyway, there's the dashboard. Monday, 3rd of July here. Countries like my country. It's actually quite remarkable to hear all the massive rhetoric about how price inflation is just destroying people's lives here. So it was a very muted Canada day yesterday. In fact, actually, ironically enough, talking to my stepmother who happens to live in this country's capital, it was actually a thunder shower and it was raining all yesterday in the capital, so not the best weather for fireworks. Canada is closed today. I'm not quite sure if the Europeans had a holiday or not today. I don't think they did, but the American market is open. It's a bit of a muted session, not 100%. Of course, the Americans are going to be gone tomorrow. So as I kind of had warned, it seems like every second week they got another Hallmark holiday that they've built into here. So it's like it's almost become sort of part of just the regular conversation. Just every week's a holiday, right? Workers just keep collecting money and don't work. I don't know. Anyway, point of the matter here is kind of a screwy holiday sessions in here today. I had made reference to Bitcoin's price action going to be a little bit wonky, and it looks like indeed that's the case. Yesterday on the Broiler Chicken show, I had talked about expanding wedges. Now it looked to me like we could very easily see stopwashes on both sides of the market, and I think that's what's happening. I'm not exactly sure when I'm allowed to talk about the algo signals. This is a little bit screwy. Some people want me talking about them. Some people don't want me talking about them. I don't know. Anyway, point of the matter here is we did have an algo signal that fired there a few days ago. And the market's moved up smartly from that level. For the manual market participants, I actually really didn't have a problem being short off of this inside bar failure and having your stop at new highs. But given this wonky holiday session, it wouldn't surprise me if they wash those highs. They wash this high, they wash this high. It looks like they want to wash it up here, but anyway, we'll see what happens. And I did notice like 2-to-1s would all be just nothing more than just the market coming back to 38.2. So that seems like actually a very normal trade. I just think through the holiday session here, things are a little bit wonky, illiquidity, that kind of stuff. So nice to see that the algo signal, of course, is marching along, doing its thing. It's encouraging. Because it's a holiday, I don't know whether in a holiday environment, I don't know whether there's a heck of a lot we can actually sort of like take from market price action here as too solid. If anything, it was kind of interesting. Somebody in the Broiler Chicken show yesterday asked about Litecoin. And I said I didn't really have any sell signals working there per se, but just understand we are in that basically now about a month or so prior to its happening. And what usually happens with Litecoin, it's fascinating that it's coming off here as we speak. Usually what happens is Litecoin usually tops out about a month or so ahead of the happening. So maybe it's actually Litecoin that actually starts the selling off. It's not Bitcoin that starts it off, but things like Litecoin. It wouldn't surprise me. Suppose our regular routine here. Because it's sort of a semi-holiday session, routine's kind of out of whack here. But what I normally do, load up the computer, feeling pretty good. Diet's pretty good. I put myself on an exercise routine, but wow, all of this sort of vaccine related sicknesses that I have, none of it's gone away. My shoulder still hurts every single day of my life now. My toes are still, I don't know if it's some sort of infection or something, but that hasn't changed at all. And then when I put myself on a bit of a exercise routine, I had really weird things happen. I've never pulled a muscle in my stomach and my abdomen. And I did that when I was just starting to do some sit-ups again. So I don't know. I pulled my one ab. Anyway, so exercise routine's a little bit challenging right now. I did get a bit of sleep, but considering today is a holiday, I kind of took the day quiet. I didn't really want to push anything. News headlines. It is the beginning of the third quarter, so probably by default we should take the first week or two of this new quarter with a grain of salt. Just sort of let the market settle out and show us what it's thinking. Um, on Mondays, I do like to go through the dashboard information and try and glean sort of what we can take from the market, who's leading the charge, who's lagging. So it's interesting. I think XLIs like our industrials, XLB is a basic materials. IWM actually is Russell 2000. Interesting. SHV, I think, is a bond fund, and LQD is a bond fund. Interesting leaders just out of the gate here to begin the quarter. And I've actually made the argument that I think actually you might even see a further sort of rotation in the market. Like I said, it's the first week, 2 weeks of the Q3, so we probably want to be watching where the fund managers want to put their money to work, and then that'll give us maybe an idea of what the entire quarter looks like. And I like the idea that the industrials should start outperforming. Maybe we move away from technology and discretion. Communication services. Did notice that Tesla, of course, is up again. So I don't know. We'll see how that plays out over the next week or two. But just the ETFs here, the industrials, the basic materials, and even the bonds and the small caps, which is interesting because that's heavily dominated by all the regional banking system. And I actually think that the regional banks are going to get a fairly nice shot in the arm here, based on what we sort of talked about yesterday with Caitlin here. I actually think that the U.S. Federal Reserve just lost a massive amount of credibility in the market's eyes. And, the pendulum had been swinging for quite a long time towards, just listen to Uncle Jerry and listen to, Joey Diamond, that asshole. They'll take care of us, listen to grandma. She's been working at the Federal Reserve for her entire career. She must know what she's doing. And of course, they all literally set the biggest trap for all these regional banks. A lot of the regional banks fell into the trap and they got absolutely destroyed. And I think the whole thing was done on purpose, which is really tragic. I don't know whether Jerry was part of the conspiracy. I get the feeling that Jerry was played a little bit, and I think he's actually a bit embarrassed by how badly he played that whole inflation move. But I could definitely see Grandma. I could definitely see Joey. All those type of people all were in cahoots to try and destroy the regional banking system down in the States. And now I actually think you're probably going to have a shift in society towards this zero reserve or 100% reserve banking system. And fuck you with your stupid reserve requirement. I only keep 10, 20%. And hell, through the sickness, Jerry was even going on, hell, we don't even need 10%. You could have no reserves. We're going to have zero reserves. Just go and buy all the US treasuries you can possibly buy. I mean, just an absolute disaster. So, interestingly enough, this if you were asking Brian, what would you like to see in this world? I'd like to see us move back towards this kind of world. I mean, you've heard me talking about things like if you go into like video games like World of Warcraft, what is the bank? The bank is where you go and deposit stuff, and you know that it's safe in there. That was the whole point of it. Banks have big safes so robbers can't steal your money. So can we please go back to that world? Because that's basically what this would be. And, Caitlin, of course, here wants to float a bank where you use Bitcoin as your sort of your deposits. And of course, no reserve lending bullshit nonsense that they got these banks into. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. The point here is that this might actually be a bit of a reprieve for the regional banks because they've been under an intense amount of pressure lately because basically the Fed people just set them up for disaster. Now I think you're actually going to see the pendulum swing back the other direction. So where am I going with all of this? The point is that, of course, a lot of the regional banks are in the Russell 2000, and Russell 2000 actually is technically, like we said there, it's actually on our leaderboard here today. Where was that? Over here. IWM, right? That's the Russell 2000. Also, too, this should be an interesting commentary on the sort of broader market. There's a lot of this is a lot of companies, a lot of manufacturing, a lot of smaller companies. Is that going to try and make some sort of cup and handle? Are we going to do A, B, C, Ds, those kind of fun things? I mean, you can see she's got a pretty good base. If I was going to be botting this, right, I'd go W, confirm W. So now we get the A to B, and now this should be C to D to take us the next leg higher. So it doesn't surprise me that the Russell 2000 is a little bit happier with this kind of conversation, that the regional banking is breathing a big sigh of relief right now. Also, too, this should be, it should be good for Bitcoin. Should be good for crypto as well, as sort of like, hey, you want to take personal control of your banking. And you want to tell all these CBDC idiots to go screw themselves. You're not going to be some sort of, zombie to their system. We should all be huge fans of Caitlin and help her any way we possibly can. I don't know how we can, but anyway, so I did find that interesting. And the whole point of this was that usually August is actually a pretty good time for things like the gold market. So, here we are, July, and of course, July, August, September, that is basically Q3. And our industrials ETF and our basic materials ETF are leading the charge. And we know seasonally that the metals actually do fairly well here through the summer. The latter part of the summer, not the beginning part, but the latter part of the summer. And so interestingly, sort of, along that vein, of course, we do watch a bunch of metal names on the site. And of course, I'm from Canada, so there's going to have to be a bunch of mining stocks in my portfolio anyway. And I just noticed some of these metal names are starting to look very attractive. The Pan American Silver, right down at the bottom end of his range. I don't know whether I would call that a buy signal yet, but trying desperately to hold on to these lows. Agnico Eagle as a gold stock put in an outside upside engulfing bar there last week. The American market is open. Canadian market is closed today, so you don't see that. But you can see in the Canadian market, that was actually not quite a key reversal, but definitely a W now off of that bottoming action. So get ready, folks. Looks like the metal markets are trying to turn here. First Majestic, pretty popular long time silver stock. You can see the W that's come in there. Did notice anybody who did buy that Polymet, which was a copper name, Glencore, I think the principal, and of course this name just absolutely fell apart, and I couldn't figure out why. It just made no sense. But there's the Canadian stock. Look at that, just absolute crater. And then the parent company that actually runs this project said, you know what, screw it. We're just going to go and buy the company out. we're just going to take the damn thing private. So I thought that was interesting to see that. So hopefully that kind of move, and I think they're offering $2, 250 or something like that a share. Maybe if we're really lucky, this turns into some sort of bidding war or something. So anyway, people should be able to get a whole lot of that. But I am noticing that these metals are starting to turn back up, and there was one. I think it's a warrant that I was interested in. Is that guy? Yeah, look at this chart. TMC, the metals company. I'm not even quite sure the fundamental story here, but look at that chart. I mean, is there any money for us speculators in the market to be making some money here? I'll probably review a bunch of metal names with the group tomorrow, Tuesday, our stock pickers club. Although it is the middle of the summer, so things are pretty quiet in that neck of the woods. So anyway, I think that's a pretty good analogy of, nobody's interested in metals right now, and some of these names are slowly starting to put in bottoms. The Econs today, like I said, it's kind of it's like a semi-holiday. It's not a holiday down in the States, but it is a holiday in other countries, and it will be a holiday tomorrow. Sure, there's probably a lot of guys on Wall Street that didn't even bother showing up for work today. But news and econs, U.S. factory activity shrinks the most in nearly 3 years. Of course, this is exactly what we expected. This is exactly what Mr. Powell has said. I want to inject pain into your lives. The fascinating thing about this, though, and it drives you crazy, is U.S. construction spending above forecast. So it's like he wants to try and bring the inflation problem into check, but they can't seem to stop this damn housing beast that they've unleashed onto the world. And this is the direct result. I mean, really, this is socialism 101. The U.S. government basically went in and guaranteed all those Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac debts, and basically took all the bad paper and just said, well, we're going to nationalize this. So, of course, that's our hyperinflation world that we live in now. So what a surprise, all of the efforts that Powell's trying to do to bring inflation into check, it's killing the broader economy. If you're in the business of widgets, you're dying 1,000 deaths right now. But, as I've told you before, especially with the fact that, this damn housing market is basically guaranteed by these governments, they can't stop this beast here. So which means that Fed's probably going to have to keep raising interest rates until, the rest of the economy is going to absolutely crater. And really, I think what the U.S., the people in charge on the U.S., what they'd like to see is they'd like to see something break around the world that creates like a massive deflationary spiral. Maybe China tips over into civil war. Is Russia already in a civil war right now? I don't know, but I think that's probably what they'd like to see. Did see that, of course, European data just is an absolute train wreck. So if anything, maybe we'll even go back into that whole sort of pigs world again. And maybe Portugal real estate starts going back down again. We could start thinking about buying a place over there again. I don't know. One thing that I have told you recent that I think is very helpful, I've been mentioning this since we do load this page up fairly regularly. You can get a pretty good idea of what North America is, sort of what its day is going to look like if you just make a reference to what happened in Japan. And you can see Japan is just going for it here, up another 1.7%. Surged 1.7%. Broader Topex index jumped 1.4%. So they're closing at their highest level in 33 years. Wow, there you go. There's a statement if I've ever heard one. I suppose you could probably pull up this chart here, do Foggenbaum's. That's probably 2.618 up in that area. And the bottom line here, of course, you heard me going on crazy rants about Toyota Motor Company and stuff like that. Well, Japan's pretty hot right now, no doubt about it. And if anything, probably a lot of the capital that the Japanese actually invested into China, it's being repatriated back to Japan right now. So that's probably another reason why the Japanese market is doing as well as it is. Also, too, I suppose you could make the argument that the actual data here today, China manufacturing growth slows less than expected. So it's still slowing, just not as bad as we thought it was going to be. That might also be a bit of a boon. That's not really bullish, but for something like Japan, Japan, I think, has underperformed for a very, very long period of time. And you might find now that the sort of the illusion of this Chinese wonderfulness is dissipating. A lot of capital probably makes its way back to Japan. They had a lot of those Japanese companies have been sort of doing nothing forever, like Toyota. All right. So there's sort of your economic backdrop in like I said, a relatively quiet session. Didn't really see anything dramatic on the news front. Obviously, what's going on over there in France is a little bit startling, but would France be France if people weren't bitching and complaining? Arr, arr, arr. And of course, oh God, whatever, we have French people on the website. There was one guy in France who literally took everything that we did at TRI and basically copied it. Didn't even bother changing the logos and set up a whole website for himself. Hey, look at me, I'll teach you how to trade. And literally just copied everything from us. So I don't know, the French are the French. If anything, it doesn't surprise me seeing what's going on in France. They have a history of being quite, what do you say, vocal in their protests. I don't know. But nonetheless, that's probably the biggest news in Europe right now is the chaos there in France. Like I said there earlier, I get the impression that the U.S. Sort of federal system is under question now, but I don't know whether that's really seen too much in the data. Did see things like, this guy is a funny character. Biden sort of, he was running against Biden. He brought him on as his transportation secretary. So there's that. And of course, now they're calling him Biden economics. Small businesses just getting absolutely destroyed by this guy. It's reshaping the economy. Economists say it's too early to tell. And I suppose if we have an election and Mr. Orange Toupee comes storming back in to power, he'll probably just sit and try and undo everything that Biden tried to do here over the past 4 years. A little bit scary now. Actual auto manufacturers have to go into the lithium business. If it actually comes to light, the very sketchy circumstances around lithium mining, I don't think that that's going to play well in the public's eyes. But anyway, we'll see how that plays out. So as we said, Paris news and French riots and stuff, that's obviously dominating the news headlines. I think everybody was sort of expecting that the U.S. Supreme Court would be sort of putting the kibosh on Biden's sort of nationalization of the student debt situation. And frankly speaking, I don't like this. As a capitalist, I don't like how people can go and borrow money and and literally really bad economics, and then expect bailouts to sort of make them whole. Really, really bad economics. This was started with quantitative easing. Half of those banks should have gone bankrupt. 2008, financial crisis should have led to a Great Depression through the 2010s. That's what should have happened. So, they unfortunately, opened Pandora's box with this quantitative easing. And we are living in the end result of this. But what should happen if we have any kind of moral fiber to us, people that have taken out too much debt, they should go into bankruptcy and they should have to go through a lot of pain. I don't know whether we get back to things like debtors' prisons, but we should do that. But I have a funny feeling like these Canadian banks, they've set themselves up exactly like the US banks set themselves up in 2008. And I have a feeling that this Canadian housing industry is an absolute joke and it's a fraud. And it's basically a crime that's been committed against Canadian citizens. And you are now seeing, of course, the ridiculous prices of these Canadian houses. You're seeing that, society now, average Canadians can't afford a house in this country, which is just stupid. And what's going to end up happening is stupid substitute drama teachers are going, when the system breaks and people go, oh, yeah, turns out it's all a fraud and they need too big to fail and all that bullshit. We're all going to fucking have to go and bail these people out for a horrible business. So it's such a bad recipe. And the problem is once you start going down this path, it just ends in disaster. That's half the reason. And I keep saying this to you guys. This is half the reason why we own Bitcoins and we're in crypto is we don't want to live in this world of fraud and hypocrisy. But anyway, so, my hunch is we're probably going to have a whole bunch more fraud and hypocrisy as they bail out all these banks for really horrible business practices. But, that should probably launch Bitcoin up into the hundreds of thousands of dollars this next go. So I didn't really see anything news wise that was just like, oh my gosh, did you see that? Did you hear that? Just sort of pretty business as usual. A little bummed that our API, the Associated Press RSS feed, just keeps cutting out on us. It's kind of a bummer. Anyway, I do like to watch that for the news. Okay, so there's basically a market summary. As I sort of said there earlier, I like to start my day with, just looking at the news and the econs, because it's a holiday session, I sort of gave myself permission to go pretty light here. Looking at the three biggies that I like to follow, crude, gold, and stocks. Crude oil actually hit an AB equals CD objective overnight there. Actually, it was a really nice little 3-minute short setup that fired first thing this morning. I missed it, of course, because I slept in. So back here, I don't really have anything. We're basically sitting just above settlement right now. We could oscillate either direction here. No problem. But there actually was a half decent little setup there first thing this morning in the crude. And just to show you, that was up at 71.61 area on that harmonic. And there is that setup there. So you can see the bear div setting up as we come up into this 71.61 area. Willie stupidly overbought. So at any point in time can hunt like sort of M's to get short. You could have hit this little M up here. Unfortunately, that was basically through the London session. And frankly speaking, there's probably your trade right there. Who can tell me what is, and this is only off a 3-minute chart, but have I convinced all of you of the significance of key reversal bars? So absolutely beautiful key reversal there. Even off of the 3-minute chart, it's remarkable how this stuff happens. And you could also argue that's a double top fail. And of course, boom, down we go. So I think you might argue that through the latter part of the overnight session and then getting ready for the American session, even though, technically the Americans are here, but things like Canadians aren't. Notice that was like 5 o'clock in the morning, my time. They brought the market right back up into that topping area to give the Americans the opportunity to get short from the appropriate level as well. So that was basically the crude trade this morning. What time is it? Yeah, we probably should wind this up pretty soon. Yeah. Same sort of interesting how we both had ABCDs working on gold. I don't think we've actually hit this ABCD on gold yet. ATR is all the way up top there, and fog and bombs off of this bottom are up here. So I still think that there's a bit more action to be done up in this area. I didn't really like this as a trade location here in particular. Had we gone up and hit that AB equals CD, maybe I would have thought otherwise. Right now, if anything, we just got a moving average cross on the 4 hours. So this thing's still pointing up. And I don't see any reason why we can't hit that fog and bomb level and some sort of spike up tomorrow, or I guess not tomorrow, but maybe Wednesday or Thursday. Stock market itself looks very dangerous here. This is kind of like what I think after we get through the holiday sort of session and sort of, the adults come back. This isn't really the best place for me to be thinking about buying. I don't really even like buying, things like Bitcoin up top here. Please refer to the video yesterday. I go on at length about how I really didn't like that as a trade location. And the stock market kind of looks the same way. I mean, yes, we could consolidate and push our way higher here, but wow, that is really, really risky. And we've already hit head and shoulders objectives. We've come into horizontal support and resistance, and we banged up against a significant trend line there. So I'm not overly impressed with this. And of course, you remember our conversation there a few minutes ago about old economy, new economy. I get the impression that regional banks feeling a little bit better. So small cap index is feeling a bit better. Industrials better. Basic materials feeling a little bit better. That gold market's still pointing higher as far as I'm concerned. I like that the Dow could outperform here, but the NASDAQ maybe has to take a bit of a pause. It's interesting how a W just came in on the NASDAQ there. But you can even see here, right, even now that NASDAQ is slightly underperforming, not huge amounts, but slightly underperforming. And you can see Apple and Microsoft and Google and Meta, they're all down on the day. Tesla's probably bucking the overall trend. That's probably the one thing that's sort of caveat to all of this. And as I had said earlier, I kind of like that the basic materials, you can see there's a bit of green in there. So I kind of like the metals and the commodity side. In fact, actually, even things like soybeans and stuff starting to firm up. And industrials, we kind of like the industrials. Showed you earlier the industrial ETF was pointing up. So there are a couple names there that I'm interested in. I suppose the only sort of caveat to sort of all of this is, how does Tesla act as, it's pretty much a contrarian sort of play here. On the classic sort of, does does Tesla continue to enjoy all the tax breaks and stuff like that? Do these states still highly incentivize people to get off of gasoline powered engines? Does Toyota and its hydrogen sort of technology start eating into that Tesla sort of trade? I don't know what the answer to any of that is, but anyway, interesting to see how Tesla kind of bucking that overall sort of NASDAQ weakness. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. Like my knee jerk is that I'm thinking we're in this part of the cycle here now, which means that I want to see industrials and materials outperform here, but we're going to have to see what the market does over the next couple of weeks. And, yeah, I mean, that's about all I can say there. Sort of finish off this free broadcast, just quick boo at things like Bitcoin. As we had sort of talked about recently, same thing with the stock market. I really don't like the trade location here. This is very, very difficult to justify thinking about like new long setups here. I'd like to see this form a little bit, but at the same time too, fun little algorithms that we have running spat out signals a few days ago. Not really allowed to talk about the algo signals as they're happening in real time. So this is a few days later, and it is about $700 later. So I think I'm allowed to talk about that now. I don't know. But as I sort of said yesterday in the broiler chicken show, because we had higher highs here and we had lower lows here, I get the feeling this is a bit of a megaphone that's going on right now, which means that really the trading range on this market is probably a test of the highs. And then, of course, this big tail after the SEC. And then once we actually get back to work in earnest, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'd actually expect this to roll over. So we'll see what happens. As it is right now, still pointing up. Algos are still long. There, I guess, is the algo trade from a few days ago. I think I'm allowed to talk about it. I'm sure I probably broke the rules again. And then the manual trades off of just hitting inside bars and double tops, they're underwater. So go figure. Maybe this is one of the cases where the market is smiling at us, but maybe they just say to hell with it. It's a holiday, so we don't have to worry too much about SEC and all that kind of stuff happening. One thing I did notice that surprised me a bit here today was because the US stock market is open, so all of these Bitcoin and crypto ETFs and plays down in the States are trading away. And I did notice that, let's see where the heck I can find it. Where are you? You're in here somewhere. Oh, you crazy Bitcoin and crypto stocks. Here we are. Did notice the BITO, which is sort of the stock market proxy, and it trades off of the US futures. So not really part of the SEC conversation. But it did not confirm the bearish engulfing bar signal this morning. It did open violently lower, but this actually bearish engulfing bar signal doesn't actually fire until we go through this low. So it's fascinating. They brought the market out, gapped it violently lower here this morning, and then they've just spent the morning here backfilling. Remember, we talked a lot about this over the past week or so. This $17 level was the massive options level on that BITO. So we expected them to close this thing basically right around that level, and I think they closed it at like 1698. Now, these options auto exercise when they're a nickel in the money. So the $17 puts at 1698 would not have been auto exercised. They would have expired 2 cents in the money. So I suppose there would have been 2 cents of intrinsic value. But if you paid, $2 or $3 for the option, then basically it just died worthless. So I thought that was interesting this morning. It looks to me like, bottom end of the range is that panic dump low that we saw in the SEC announcement, and top end of the range is that high up there. And for the time being, that's, I think, this market is basically parked in that range. And as I said, the Americans, they will be on break tomorrow. So this will be closed, basically in about 2.5 hours. Most of the pros in Wall Street are not probably even there today. Couple interesting things. I noticed that coin back up pressing $80. So we've gone and now filled in this gap from up top. So if you actually wanted to top coin out up at the top end of the range, well, they brought it back to the top end of the range. And I suppose we could probably also do things like fog and bombs. So maybe we work our way all the way up to 4669. That's a tough one. And I noticed Mr. Saylor, of course, he's pressing higher here. Well, not a bad looking price chart. Yeah, that low is very close to that low. Probably this would probably be a half decent objective, which kind of makes sense because just basically rallying up against these highs here. So Mr. Saylor here is still pointing up. And I think on balance, that's got to be good for the space. Probably the big thing if you're going to be watching crypto, a lot of these little ones, looking very, very attractive here. Those are pretty good looking percentage moves. I noticed this Cello here. I mean, great looking bottom. I posted this in the lounge. This looks almost exactly like that one that I showed you yesterday, the KMD. Big rally here over the past couple days here on this cello, of course, off the bottoms. And we're seeing a lot of names that look like this. And this is exactly what should happen around the end of June, beginning of July, setting up for our summer silly season. The only issue now, though, of course, is if you're looking at this, can you see how they've got quite a bit of wiggle room here now? So you could have, things like Litecoin and stuff like that calm down, through its halving event and all that. And this thing, if I wanted to be a buyer of this, you all know exactly where I would be buying. So you can see that, he's got a lot of room to actually just do nothing more than backfill as things like Litecoin maybe have to calm down. And I did find it interesting that somebody had asked me about Litecoin yesterday, and I was like, well, I don't really have any sell signal there working per se, but could we have a top come in here anywhere up in this area? Yeah, I mean, it could very easily happen. We made another new high here, but you can see, boom, market dropped like a stone. And then my old buddy Ben, who we did the shows, the little coin shows when I was running them myself. He actually sent me some of his work on the Litecoin halving and how this thing usually plays out. And I have to say, we're starting to get into windows here that I would have thought that we probably need to start running out of steam here. So I think in the after party, I might sort of dig into this a little bit more with the gang here today. But if it wouldn't surprise me if there's some sort of top here in Litecoin in the not too distant future. It's we're getting awfully close to this happening sort of window, and now you can even argue that like things like 200 SMA, that's at $86, and here we are at 106. And you could easily have this market drop 20-30%. All it would be doing is just backing up into support. So, if there's going to be a tell of what's going to break first, I think let's watch the Litecoin. That isn't technically a sell today because we just made a new high, but it's getting tired. I would definitely concede that. So, okay, I think I'm going to leave the public broadcast at that. I don't know whether I was of any help to anybody. If you got some value out of that, please, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, maybe tell a friend. If you enjoyed my comic stylings there this morning. Slow and steady wins the race. Of course, don't take no wooden nickels. You know what your number one job is here as a trader. So just make damn sure you can come back and play the game again tomorrow. Have yourselves a great day. PMA for the win. All the best, and bye for now.